In early April, I got to travel to Vilnius, Lithuania, which is the home base now of the Russian dissident movement. Any kind of political dissent in Russia today is extremely dangerous. So now the movement is effectively in exile. It was really a privilege to talk to Yulia Navalnaya at this moment because since her husband's death, she has not given an interview to the press. And a lot of people in Russia and people who follow the opposition movement in Russia have been wondering what she will do after stepping into the role that her husband occupied as the leader of the opposition. I'm Simon Schuster. I'm a senior correspondent for Time magazine, focusing mostly on coverage of Russia and Ukraine. And I first met Alexei Navalny in Moscow when he was really just entering the national political arena in Russia. I interviewed him many times as he progressed in his career, got to know him quite well, got to know his activist organization, and was hit very hard when news of his death broke in February.
The leading Kremlin critic, Alexi Navalnaya, has died.
Dropped dead suddenly at a penal colony in Siberia.
His family this morning claiming he was murdered.
Throughout his career as an activist and a dissident, his wife, Yulia Navalnaya, has been by his side, supporting him, very much an active advisor, but she was never really front and center in the spotlight. She has decided to step up into the center of the frame and take leadership over his activist network, an activist organization, which is known as the Anti-Corruption Foundation. She didn't have a lot of time to grieve. She has jumped headlong into diplomatic efforts and revolutionary efforts tied to the work of their activist network.
Привет, это Юлия Навальная. Сегодня, в первый раз на этом канале, я хочу обратиться к вам.
She is a different figure, she's a different leader. Yulia Navalnaya is very smart, a very good speaker, a very good and effective public speaker. I think she's more serious than her late husband.
Вы нарушаете всякий закон, и человеческий, и Божий.
She exudes a kind of righteous anger and rage at the regime that Alexei Navalny generally kept to himself, or cloaked in a kind of ironic sense of humor. And that kind of righteous anger is something that could serve her well in winning allies and winning supporters inside Russia who do not necessarily support the opposition movement now.
Что касается господина Навального, да, он ушел из жизни.
Everyone in Russia, even with the censorship that exists there today, is aware of Alexei Navalny's killing. They know what happened to him.
Putin must answer for everything he has done to Alexei.
Yulia Navalnaya's cause, as someone who is out to avenge her husband's killing, is something that I've heard a number of activists talk about as a real asset in winning people over. One of the things that Yulia Navalnaya talked about with me in some detail is finding ways through the internet or other means available to them to show people that you are not alone if you oppose Putin, that there are many Russians who oppose this regime.
Long lines of Russians formed at polling stations like this one in Moscow.
Heeding the call of allies of the late opposition leader Alexei Navalny, who urged people to turn out to spoil their ballots or to vote for any other candidate.
Yulia Navalnaya insists that it's tens of millions of Russians who oppose this regime, that they exist, that they are still there, that the consensus around supporting this regime is not nearly as strong as Kremlin propaganda would like you to believe. And their main objective is to maintain a sense of community inside Russia for people who are opposed to Vladimir Putin's regime, and to engage in effectively counter-propaganda, so to give people a source of news and information and ideas that runs counter to the Kremlin's messaging on Kremlin-run television. They have TV studios that they use to film and broadcast their message and their videos into Russia.
Никакие запугивания и угрозы не сработали. Вы сильнее их.
I think everyone involved in the leadership of this movement against Putin understands the physical risks that they're under. All of them are forced to look over their shoulders.
Longtime ally of Navalny. He was assaulted while in his car in the Lithuanian capital, Vilnius.
They are in serious danger, basically all the time. They have decided that they will live with the risks, they will live with the physical dangers they face because it's necessary for them to be out and about. One of the things I discussed with Yulia Navalnaya, I asked her, did you ever talk to your husband when he was alive about her potentially taking leadership of their movement if he were to be killed? And she surprised me in saying that no, they had never talked about that. It was her decision to step into that role. She said that she doesn't like to think very much about what he would make of that decision. She fears if she gets hung up on that question, that it may make her doubt herself in moments of crisis and difficulty.
Я буду продолжать дело Алексея Навального, продолжать бороться за нашу с вами страну, и я призываю вас стать рядом со мной.
These are her decisions now. She has to make them on her own, and she will follow her conscience.